here's Brody Brazil.
Okay, so I'm finally getting around to making this video, which I'll explain in just a second. I'm here to talk about what happened on Thursday out at the Coliseum in that joint press conference between the City of Oakland and AASEG, the African American Sports and Entertainment Group. There's their number one guy, Ray Bobbitt, at the podium, joined by Oakland's new mayor, Sheng Thao, as well as Vice Mayor Rebecca Kaplan. She's on the bottom there clapping. And there were a number of other distinguished individuals on stage, which we can discuss later on. But I want to address this first. People ask me, where were you? Why weren't you there to cover this? What, you don't support it? And no, the answer is two things. Number one, I was out of town, simple as that, on vacation that was pre-planned. The other thing is, I didn't even know about this press conference until maybe 24 hours in advance. Now, that's not to suggest anything sinister about it, because normal media entities were there, newspapers, television stations, all the major ones, so everybody knew about it. Yeah, maybe it was a little bit late-breaking, and maybe that was to avoid an overwhelming amount of the general public trying to show up. They wanted to probably keep it media only. So I'm not here to suggest there's anything crazy about it, but it happened really fast. I was paying attention from a distance, and now that I've kind of digested everything, I want to discuss what we actually saw. Redeveloping the Coliseum land should absolutely be celebrated. I saw some people frustrated, maybe confused on why Oakland was prioritizing the Coliseum redevelopment instead of, paying attention to the A's and Howard Terminal. But this is one of those situations where the cart literally can't come before the horse. You can't break ground on anything at the Coliseum site until you've figured out what to do with the Oakland A's and the Coliseum structure itself. Look, the baseball team, it not only needs a new home, it absolutely needs a new site, a new chapter. And so you're hoping that these two things happen in tandem. I understand maybe addressing this one more formally rubs some people the wrong way, but I honestly don't see it that way. These two projects, I hope they both happen. Like, that's the icing and the cake, the icing on the cake, so to speak. So to be talking about this one is no problem. And again, if you're somebody who champions Oakland and realizes what's best for the city and that area, and specifically East Oakland, this is absolutely what you're hoping happens at some point, and obviously in all the right ways. So don't worry so much about the sequence of things. Let's be happy that something like this is planned and hopefully eventually happens. Okay, none of what was announced or celebrated was new information. Literally none of this was brought to the table. The Oakland City Council unanimously voted to enter into this exclusive negotiation agreement with AASEG. I kid you not, back on November 17th, 2021. No, not last year. 2 Novembers ago, like almost a year and a half ago. They made the decision, then there were two main groups, and full disclosure, the other group was led by my colleague and friend Dave Stewart. He and his wife were not awarded this exclusive negotiation agreement. AASEG was. And so bottom line is, this has been established for a very long time. Only now is it being announced. And back then, when it was announced, the initial term was a negotiation agreement for 18 months, right? 18 months to come up with a development agreement that the developer and the city could both agree on. It was also going to cost AASEG $200,000 a year in fees, plus a one-time fee of $2.5 million to support the staff that would do all the research, all the paperwork, all of the technical and legal things behind the scenes to get this project going. So the new term, as I understand it, as it's been reported, is for 2 years. I'm assuming that it begins now, like February of 2023, into February of 2025, to reach an agreement. So to be clear, this was not an agreement that was made. This is a negotiation agreement, not a development agreement. And this was awarded a year and a half ago almost, and is now getting underway for the span of 2 years. But again, it has to go to eventually a vote by the city council, what would be a binding vote on a development agreement. And that agreement is still necessary. AASEG, just kind of like the A's at Howard Terminal, they still need to shake hands and get that vote from the city of Oakland and their council. So as much as there was fanfare and celebration, I think people mistook this for an actual development agreement. This was the negotiation agreement, the exclusive negotiation agreement, which has been known about and essentially intact since November of 2021. And let me just say this. We've seen the back and forth between the city of Oakland and the A's on Howard Terminal. I'm not suggesting that these two projects are identical or that the groups are identical, but I'm just saying that Oakland has yet to reach an agreement with the baseball team, so we'll see how things progress with AASEG at the Coliseum site, because they're going to have to do that same negotiation, potentially for funding and approvals. I won't go too deep into the weeds on that, but an agreement here, it's important to know, is still necessary for developing the Coliseum. So the mayor and different speakers, which included a number of city council members, they were all very passionate about the Coliseum site and potential and how, literally groundbreaking this is for East Oakland. Like, what a big difference this could make. And I fully agree. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to build and start a new neighborhood, and to start it and design it from scratch and optimize it and get the very most out of this space that you can. And I also don't want to make this about Howard Terminal. Like, this press conference was about the Coliseum site and developing it, although you need the baseball team to vacate it to develop it like you want. And Howard Terminal is, for Oakland, a large part of that. But here's also the other part. The A's own 50% right now of the Coliseum land. Basically, nothing was said about the baseball team or Howard Terminal throughout the entirety of the press conference. Maybe referenced 2 or 3 times in sporadic amounts. I mean, this is kind of a weird situation that it's going to take actually 3 to tango, like the city, AASEG, and Oakland, but only 2 parties were there. And those 2 parties never even discussed or mentioned the third party. So, okay, it's fine that it's just about this site. It's not about the other one, but everybody's got to understand that that third party and that other project are imperative to the city of Oakland to gain financially, to open up even the space and opportunity to let this happen at the Coliseum. I just found that interesting that we did talk about, we heard about a transformational project, which is true, but there was nothing that preceded it about getting the other thing done so that this thing could become a reality. Promises of an NFL team were not exactly made, but we do keep hearing this reference. It's not, I don't even want to say a promise. It's kind of dropped into the conversation. It's hinted at. Maybe we'll get an NFL team to come back to the city of Oakland. Maybe we'll build a new football stadium at this site. But I just got to tell you, and I won't dive into the jobs or the real estate. That's not my expertise. But sports and the business part of that, they definitely are. Promises of the NFL returning, they need actual tangible evidence before you can take any of that seriously. Let me just bring up the basics. I mean, this is stuff that anybody should be able to grasp. Do you think the NFL is willing to go back into Oakland for a third time? A third total time. The league already has 32 teams. Commissioner Roger Goodell has basically said he's not interested in expansion at this time. They've kind of found a sweet spot at 32 teams. And if they were to expand, I mean, there are far more, how do I say it? Not lucrative, but exotic markets like Europe. They could do a whole division of the NFL out in Europe. They also mentioned Mexico City, maybe some other teams scattered throughout the country of Mexico. But the point is, like, the focus is not necessarily on a place like Oakland for NFL expansion, but there's not even expansion talk with the league right now. And we'll get into the WNBA in a second. They are looking to expand. The NFL has flat out said, yeah, we're not even thinking about that. So to have that conversation or even to suggest it, I think we have to be very guarded about the promises of that. Look, I know football's popular. I know that that this catches people's attention when they hear it. This is a headline as soon as it's mentioned, but what's the reality behind it? Just consume that for a minute. Okay, the other part about it is the WNBA. And I fully agree. I've been saying this for a long time. The Bay Area has been overdue for a WNBA franchise for at least a decade, if not two. I mean, this area should have got a WNBA team around the turn of the century. But at what venue right now in the Bay Area? Oakland Arena, the former Oracle Arena that the Warriors played in? A couple things to digest about this. If the WNBA is going to expand from 12 to, they've said 4 teams, to 16 teams, and if the Bay Area is one of the front-running markets, don't you think that the Warriors would somehow have to sign off on this, be involved in this? And I'm not here to say that they are or are not interested in it. I honestly don't know what their plans are. They've never discussed this before. I do understand that they have a G League team in Santa Cruz. I've seen that Kaiser Permanente Arena. So my question is, if the Warriors are going to jump in on this, would they want their WNBA team playing at Chase Center in San Francisco? Like, if they get the most pull on this, rightfully so, like they're an existing NBA franchise, would they put them there? Would they put a WNBA team in Santa Cruz? I've heard this one. How about San Jose? There's a brand new Tech CU arena, seats about 5,000. Could accommodate, it takes care of hockey right now for an AHL team, could accommodate basketball on a regular basis. I don't know, but I do know that the Warriors would probably have some sort of say or sign off in this, and maybe they want nothing to do with it. Maybe they'll say, hey, it's fine if you all do it, but we don't want any part of it. Or maybe they do want a part in it. Or maybe they want a part in it and a very specific part in it. I don't know. The other thing to consider is the age, the status, and the physical size, the seating capacity of Oracle Arena, like close to 20,000. Now, it's not something that you necessarily want for your WNBA team. You're trying to foster an intimate, exciting, like crowded building and constant, you're trying to create something special. And I just think going into an older, cavernous building, I'm not sure how that's going to work. Now, if this is a short-term solution, WNBA plays at Oakland Arena for 2 years, and then they build them something, smaller and for them, like custom for them and brand new, great. But from what I'm understanding, the plan is, hey, move into Oracle Arena, and you are now the primary tenant of that building. Here's the other problem. WNBA only plays 36 regular season games. That means 18 regular season home games per year. That's just, the quantity is not enough. Forget attendance, the amount of games. It just doesn't seem like it's suitable for this building as it currently exists right now. I don't know what the right answer for Oracle Arena is. Sorry, Oakland Arena is. Muscle memory. I don't know, but I'm not sure that the WNBA permanently there is the right answer. Maybe on the site, right? Maybe on the site of the Coliseum complex, again, build something new, but I just don't know if that building, like, I want this to do well. I want this to thrive. I don't think this is the place and the setting where it's going to thrive. Long term, I just don't. Okay, let's move on to this. The Coliseum site, though, is still good for something. I don't want to pass that off here. I don't want to make it seem like, oh, well, the A's are moving and it's not good for the WNBA. This site is very specific. It's just not exactly great for Major League Baseball. I think that's been proven. And I want to give you the example of Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego, where the Padres and Chargers played for all those decades until the early 2000s. And now the site has been completely taken over by San Diego State. They tore down the existing, Qualcomm/Jack Murphy Stadium. They built a brand new football-only stadium. I think they play soccer there too. San Diego State runs it. Now there's a campus there, hotel, commercial, residential, all these other things. It's kind of like what could happen at the Coliseum site. Yeah, it's very transformational. And guess what? The baseball team, they moved to a much better venue downtown, Gaslamp District right next door, Petco Park. They've been there for about 20 years. Like, it is a hit. And the football team left town, went to Los Angeles. Where does this all sound familiar? Like, Oakland and San Diego literally have this parallel. And that site, The old Jack Murphy Stadium site, still very good for something, just not for Major League Baseball. It is good probably for the WNBA, but just not Oracle Arena / Oakland Arena. But again, I want to say that I think this is a transformational opportunity and project, and it will happen in the right sequence. Don't worry about that. Focus on the good part, that this is something Oakland needs. So lastly, how do we conclude all this? The press conference, AASEG, Oakland there, the city, the council members, the mayor, all of this. Why do you do a press conference? Why do you do it like this in public? I mean, I don't think they really answered questions from the public, or many. I didn't see that part of it. Again, I wasn't there. I'm only digesting everything I was able to consume. Why do this publicly? Why get out and give your speeches? Why make a big deal about something that's existed since November of 2021? Well, maybe priorities. It shows that Oakland is working on something. Maybe there are some politics behind this. Maybe it is a bit of a force move on the A's, who were not there. And maybe the city is trying to send a political message that way and saying that we're working on your site, even though we've not reached an agreement on where you want to go, which is also with us. Yeah, maybe to provide some pressure. Maybe none of that. Maybe it was just, a dueling piano situation, and they're both playing at the same time, and it's not that big of a deal. They are separate projects. One is really not linked to the other than the A's need to be gone before you start at the Coliseum. But I think promises is the last part about this. You want to make sure that you can deliver on all of the promises at the Coliseum site, if it really is easier to develop there, right? Howard Terminal's hard. It's on the water. It's a neighborhood that maybe didn't previously exist for a sporting complex. Now they're able to create it into one. They've designed it to be that way. But I hope all the promises that we hear about the ideas at the Coliseum complex and that site, I hope they come to fruition. But I mean, Oakland is going to talk that right now. I just hope they can to follow through and deliver on it at some point. But again, there's a lot of steps ahead of that before we get to that ultimate spot. Okay, so that's it. That's everything I wanted to say. Wow, I went a lot longer than I expected, but just needed to elaborate as much as I could. It was interesting. Not really a big deal, but I think it kind of paints a picture of at least where we're at in this situation right now. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up on this video. See you next time.